Mabuhay Manila, Kath here, and we are back with the Honor X9c 5G. But this time, we are going to test out its gaming performance. We've already seen its durability and performance as a daily driver, but will it be able to handle both competitive and graphically demanding titles? We will test out 6 games today, 3 competitive and 3 graphically demanding games. Let's dive right in. Alright, let's start with the competitive titles. First, we have the Mobile Legends. Its default settings are set to high frame rates and high graphics quality. Ultra is available on both options, so we will be bumping it up. As you can see, we get a consistent 60 FPS, which is great. Performance was smooth with no frame drops or stutter during our playthrough. However, a few minutes into the game, the device started to feel warm. After a couple of games, its performance is still consistent, which is great. So for Mobile Legends, with the maxed out setting, we get 58 to 60 FPS. Next is League of Legends Wild Rift. Some devices that I have tested are having a hard time running their opening sequence. There are some frame drops on the cutscene, but for this device, I never encountered it. When it comes to its settings, by default, it is set to performance, which is 60 frame rates. When it comes to customizing its options, 120 frames are available. However, you can only pair it with high graphics quality and medium resolution. Alright, since we are using a 120Hz display, let's cap out its frame rates. As for its performance, even though we set its frame rates to 120, we only get a consistent 60 FPS. I did see it once go above 70 frames, but that happened at the start of the game. As for our gaming experience, we get smooth and responsive gameplay with no frame drops or stutter during clashes. So for the 120 frames, high graphics quality, and medium resolution, we get a 60 to 72 FPS. Up next is Call of Duty Mobile. By default, its settings are set to high graphics quality and very high frame rate. Max frame rate is available, so we will pair both high graphics and max frames. As for its performance, during gunfights, I've never encountered any frame drops or stutter. It is responsive with no problems at all. I did encounter a slight drop on its frame when the match started, but once every player was loaded in, there were no longer any performance drops. So with the high graphics quality paired with the max frame rate, we get 57 to 60 FPS. Now for graphically demanding titles, first we will test out Zenless Zone Zero. I recommend playing on low graphics quality paired with 60 frames. In certain towns, the frame rate is different. When strolling on 6th Street, we get around 45 FPS, but while we are in Lumina Square, we only get 35 FPS. Now as for combat, we get around 24 to 35 FPS. If there are tons of animations on the screen, there are some minor stutters. Even though our FPS ranges from 20 to 35, somehow its performance was smooth. I would prefer to only do dailies on this device, but somehow its performance is bearable, so it is not a bad thing to try and play other game modes on this device. So with the lowest settings with 60 frames, we get about 24 to 35 FPS in combat and 38 to 46 FPS out of combat. Next up is Wuthering Waves. Balanced is the default setting, but we will set it to low plus 60 FPS. In the overworld, we get about 45 to 55 FPS in certain locations. When in combat, FPS dips from 23 to 34 FPS, especially when activating your Resonance Liberation. Although it is smooth on some occasions, we did encounter some frame drops and stutters. However, it is not that prominent and it is pretty much bearable. The combat feels great even though its FPS dips a bit. Its performance is still bearable. So with the low settings plus 60 frames, we get around 40 to 53 FPS in exploration and 23 to 34 FPS during combat. Lastly, we have Genshin Impact. The setting is also set to lowest paired with 60 frames. Exploring in the overworld, we get about 40 to 45 FPS, which is great. There are no frame drops or stutters, however, since we are playing on low graphics, expect the quality to be a bit blurry. As for combat, FPS ranges from 34 to 45 FPS. There are some occasional stutters, but most of them are barely noticeable. Surprisingly, Genshin runs smoothly, but if you are planning to do endgame content on this device, I would recommend not due to its occasional frame drops. So with low settings plus 60 frames, we get about 40 to 53 FPS in exploration and 34 to 45 FPS when in combat. Overall, the Honor X9c 5G is not just a durable device. It delivers as well when it comes to gaming. Competitive titles run smoothly with little to no problems at all, while graphically demanding games offer a performance that is bearable despite their inconsistent frame rates. For a device that is priced under 20,000 pesos, the Honor X9c is a solid option if you are looking for a durable device that can pretty much handle all the games you throw at it. So that is our gaming review of the Honor X9c 5G. What are your thoughts about its gaming performance? Let us know in the comments below. And thank you guys for watching, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you will be updated with our future uploads. And also don't forget to visit ManilaShaker.com and follow us on FB, X, and TikTok for more tech news, reviews, and comparisons of the latest devices. Once again, this is Kat and Buhay Manila.